Hello and welcome to the President's Podcast right here on the record with the Ohio Senate. The views the news excludes. I'm John Fortney, the Director of Communication with the Senate Republican Caucus, the Majority Caucus in the Ohio Senate. Great to have on the program the pro tem of the Ohio Senate, Senator Bill Reineke, Republican from Tiffin, Ohio, and the 26th District. Great to have you on the program. Haven't had you on for a while, I don't think since the operating budget. How's it going?
Everything's going well. We've been working a lot of issues, including the budget and making sure they've been carried out the way we want. And I think the last time we were here, we were talking about trash.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about that again. I guess one of the big things everybody is talking about right now, and we get a lot of feedback on the President's Podcast and a lot of our social media about abolishing property taxes in Ohio. There seems to be a push from a certain group that is trying to gather enough signatures to get this on the ballot next year to repeal property taxes statewide. Every state in America has some form of property taxes. What is your message to the public about the effort and what repealing property taxes would do to the state at the local level?
Well, the most important part is that all of the money is raised locally and spent locally. The state really has little to do with all of it. So I represent 7 rural counties, and all 7 counties think differently about this issue. But every county fair had a booth signing up people to repeal this real estate tax. So my message on that is, what are you going to replace it with? And what services are we going to not be able to provide anymore? So yesterday we had election, or Tuesday we had election, so all of the levies up my area were passed. So I'm confused and concerned that people don't really understand what that means.
Levies at a basic level as well, because
Correct.
Inside millage, outside millage, what does it raise? One of the things that the state Senate did lead on as part of the budget, and there was a veto override, but there was the effort to abolish new substitute emergency levies and replacement levies because they fell outside that 20 mil floor, and as the valuations went up, it resulted in unvoted revenue, and that really irritated a lot of people.
Yes, and a lot of people I still don't think understand it. And then what are we doing with replacing or eliminating replacement levies, replacing renewal levies, the terminology, but it all does matter in the big scheme of things.
We're talking about some big bucks here. And a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, Senate President McCauley was on the President's Podcast, and I asked him specifically, just basically outline how much money would have to be replaced if you maintain the status quo if property taxes were repealed in the state of Ohio. This has been viewed more than 550,000 times on our Facebook page. You can find it on our YouTube page. Our Facebook is Ohio Senate Republicans, okay? And on YouTube, it's Ohio Senate GOP. But here's what President Rob McCauley had to say.
The state of Ohio raises approximately $30 billion a year in taxation. It's about $10 billion a year from income tax, about $16 billion a year from sales tax, and the remainder from a number of other smaller taxes. Statewide, there are raised about $22 billion in property taxes. So it may sound like an appealing idea on the surface to eliminate property taxes and then just let the state pick up the tab. I have news for you. The state cannot pick up a tab that big unless people are willing to have their income taxes go up to near 10%. And their sales tax go up to about 18%.
$22 billion in property taxes, zero goes to the state. That's all collected at the local level through Ohio's 88 counties. It would drive somewhere, according to the Senate President, you would have to probably have, as a replacement, a 10% state income tax and a sales tax. I think this would be extremely damaging to local business, especially along the borders, of 18 to 20%. I mean, you want to drive business out of Ohio? I mean, what's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's crazy. We've done a lot to lower income tax in the state. 9 brackets down to 2, essentially one bracket being a 0, and the other one going to be at a 2.75 flat tax. And then we have to raise the sales tax. We have other entities throughout the state, I think 6,600 entities that have the ability to raise or lower their own taxes, and it's just a phenomenal amount of money that would basically dry up any kind of retail environment in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, dry up the retail environment. I can't imagine if you were making a major purchase, even on a house, for example, or a car. Let's say you were buying just to make the math easy, at 20%. Let's say you were buying a $40,000 car, it'd be $4,000 or $8,000 in sales taxes. I mean, sales taxes on anything. So if you live along, or even if you live in the central part of the state, I could see people driving 2 hours to go buy whatever it is, a major purchase, whether it be a new oven, a new refrigerator, anything like that, to Indiana, go down to West Virginia, or even Pennsylvania for that matter.
We have tried to lower the income tax so people have more expendable income, which would allow them to have, purchasing other products and services, which we collect sales tax on, and that was our growth last month in the state was retail sales tax. So it's a progressive form of taxing. It's something that we should be encouraging, not discouraging. Right. Not to mention all of the companies that make products here in Ohio, and we've been open arms to reduce regulation and burdens so we can get people here manufacturing products so we can have them made here and sell them here.
Yeah, 2.75% flat income tax begins in the second fiscal year, which is July 1st, as part of the new operating budget. And nobody pays that makes zero to, I think it'll be just a little over $30,000 state income tax. So this is a win-win, but that could all go away. And then wouldn't you also say if the effort to abolish property taxes in the state of Ohio goes away, there goes your local control? Because then you might be forced to see like the consolidation of down to maybe a single countywide school system. A lot of the things that communities will vote for levy-wise, that will all go away because in the centralized big government that everybody loves to blame the legislature for, right, will be making those decisions for all of the political subdivisions. Your school systems, here's what you get based on your enrollment. Your local villages or townships, here's what you get based on your population, whatever it might be. But it would force a centralization of government to have those decisions truly made out of the General Assembly and then watch the blame game start.
And we also have been doing some things like with a budget commission that every county has. And some people have been pushing back on why would we allow them to push back some of the tax that's being raised locally. So it's very comprehensive and very confusing and conflicting out there. But the other issue I'm concerned about is I know in my own school district, they okayed a income tax, which is not a property tax. So it's just, I just don't think people really are understanding that if you eliminate this tax, what are you going to replace it with?
Right, what are you going to replace it with? And I would think that the school districts would realize that, but of course everybody tries to assume some type of a political position and then play it one way or another. I think one of the things too is you were talking about the county budget commissions, and the county budget commissions are made up of the county treasurer, auditor, and prosecutor, or a county commissioner. So some of those county budget commissions have actually pushed the millage down because isn't it important to try to get the process reined in? Isn't it important to have a board that is empowered to do so by saying, this is the money that all of our millage should be raising. If it raises anything outside of that, we have the power to reduce the burden then by pushing the overall millage down on the taxpayers.
And I think the other part of that is that gets lost is the actual school systems. And any of these groups asking for money, where are their budgets at? And that's why it does matter to have really good local management of the board members and commission members, because how much reserve is enough? And I don't think any of us in the legislature have the answer, but is 50% enough or is 100% enough? And then the pushback on that would be is if it's 100%, which is more than most schools have, shouldn't they have some kind of a performance like a higher than a 2.5 star level? Just using that as an example, but performance should and does matter from these schools. So I think that the pushback that we're asking for on a local level, and not to mention rural America is losing 10% of their population. Over the last 10 years, we've lost 10%. So it's a little different than if you have a suburban area, that school district that's just drastically growing compared to rural America where it's declining. So
Well, results matter regardless of whether you live in the country or you live in the city. And when you see that school district statewide had a $10.5 billion cash carryover, you would be hard pressed to say, really, you need another levy? Now, not every district. There are some districts that, don't have the tax base, and you understand why that can be an issue, a challenge for them. But City of Columbus, public schools, $394 million cash carryover to begin this fiscal year. So, or this school year, rather. And so there have to be results. Are you educating students? Do you know where your students are? 50% chronic absentee rate in some of these districts, and the average statewide is 25.1% chronic absentee rate. I mean, that's really troubling.
It's unacceptable.
So where is the money going, especially if you don't know where the kids are? Where are your students, right? So these are some of the key issues, and I guess before we leave property taxes, tying, again, I think there's 3 House bills right now in the Senate, and I think it's it's Senator O'Brien's committee, which is local government, I think, maybe. But there's 3 House bills, and they basically empower the county budget commissions and then also tie the 20 mil floor and also that 10 mil inside millage to the rate of inflation. Do you think that that is a positive step forward in trying to bring the property tax system back within the anti-inflationary guardrails as intended?
The way I've propositioned this to my district is that I have 7 counties and nobody has agreed. So I think all of these different options are tools that each county can use to their advantage, or of trying to help with having the citizens understand what they're actually paying for and what the results that they're getting.
Well, the citizens, I'm sure your office, as just about every single office, has been flooded with property tax questions and do something about our property tax bills. Have the districts had any interesting solutions? Or is it just, hey, General Assembly, help us out here. Give us something that we can work with, and we're not going to say anything supportive but most likely negative about whatever the solution is.
I think your original point of looking at combining different school districts, and I think it's going to have to be a way we go in the future. With the declining enrollments, I'm talking about my districts in specific.
Nobody likes that, But
well, they don't want the Panthers to go away from the Tigers, but maybe there's some things we can do with treasurers and superintendents and trying to keep everybody. The public needs to understand where their tax money is going and why the tax is being derived. And I think these bills help clarify that. If it's inside millage, if it's renewal money, if it's renewal, if it's an emergency, why? They should have the right to know. But also, we should be having strong board members push back, say, okay, explain that to us, versus, oh, we just need the money because we all want our kids to be educated. And then you tie in the performance piece. It's particularly frustrating when knowing that we have a workforce that we could supply and our kids are not ready for it.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing you really were the leader on in reforming the old Department of Education into the Department of Education and Workforce. And boy, there was some pushback on that. That was quite a fight because it also revised the duties and the scope of the state school board. Now that we've seen this in effect for a while, is it making a difference in your mind?
It's been about a year that we've been into it full force, and we just hired the new director for the K through 12 piece of it. So I think it is still concerned that there's maybe a little bit too much bureaucracy, but I think the most important part of what we were trying to do is help students find their purpose. So I believe that we've done a lot of that. If you look at the career tech success and the enrollments at career techs, and then schools willing to do something in combination with the career tech schools, I think we have made some good strides on that. We put it up at a focused level that's where everybody can see it. It's not back at the school board association somewhere where nobody knows what's going on. I say that respectfully, but that was the reason we elevated it to a cabinet level position. I think that we still have a lot of gaps with some of our schools. kids are being taught to SAT, ACT, and really we're stigmatizing the opportunities that are out there. And I'll take one relevant to me as as a auto technician. It's just like they can have a good career, make good money, they're well trained, but it's stigmatized as something, dirty hands type
You
of
should
thing.
go to college. I mean,
You should go to
For 30
college.
years, that's been the thing. John, you should go to college. Well, you take the ACT and you take the SAT, and then, gee golly, you have a 4-year degree, but it's a worthless piece of paper if it's not paying the bills.
Yeah, the tech cred that's been started through the Office of the Governor with Workforce Development has been amazing, where we've been able to get kids with a tech cred or with a credentialing and, stacking their credentials. And then many of these kids go on to the career tech piece and then maybe even have an advanced 2-year degree from a career tech school before they graduate from high school. That's exciting. That's the fun part of seeing what we've been doing to help people. So if they would go to a company and somebody would employ them on a work-study program and eventually hire them long-term, they're likely to pay for the extension of their college degree. So that's, I think, where it's become fun and exciting to see the changes that we've made take place.
That's also a great way to get a head start on life.
Absolutely.
Is it not?
Absolutely.
You're 19, 20 years old, you're making 80 grand a year right out of the box because you're a certified mechanic or a certified welder.
Engineer, there's so many fields that this applies to.
And you don't have to wait 4 years, and you don't have the college debt.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's really a great way to go. And it's also a win-win for the state of Ohio.
Well, the most important part is that when we started this 10 years ago, working with this legislation, that we were suggesting that technology is changing every 10 years. Now we're at a 3 to 5 year phase. It's like we've got to do this now because the companies are looking for these people now, and there's opportunities now. So that's the good part.
You represent more of a rural area. I'm from rural Ohio as well. What do you think the top issues are in your district as far as rural America and rural Ohio goes?
I think the largest issue is the idea that rural is different than big city or even suburban, and how do we protect that? And I'm talking about just basic farmland. How do we preserve that when number one export in the state or number one product is agriculture? How do we protect that? And I'd say the issue that comes along with that is people from out of state coming in and telling us that what they know is better than what we know. And so I think just the education at the local level is really important, and I found myself being a champion for rural America because of the landfill issues that we've had, and out-of-state companies still kind of dictating what we do, and it's real estate land, and then the wind and the solar issues, and the other one are expansion of farms, animal farms. So
large-scale operations.
Correct.
Then. Getting back to, you had Senate Bill 2, you were the sponsor of Senate Bill 2. The state's comprehensive energy plan that was signed into law at the governor's mansion. We were there. You can find the video, the interviews that we did with Senator Reineke and Senator Chavez, who's the chair of the Energy Commission, and Senate President McCauley. What do you think has been the key reform from Senate Bill 2 to set the state of Ohio up for success in becoming truly part of America's energy independence drive? Because one of the key things that people don't like to see are huge increases in their heating bill during the wintertime, and it's going to be cold soon, very cold soon, and the potential for rolling blackouts when the AC's on during the summertime.
We took a leadership position as far as the state of Ohio. I'm really happy that we had such a good group in the Senate. We had an equally as good group in the House. Plus, we had bipartisan support through the Democrats and the Republicans, recognizing that we could make a difference in the nation. And the biggest issue is that, and most people don't know, is that Ohio is part of a 13-state conglomeration, or what we call the grid, which is where we need our energy to go. So the three issues were consumer cost, which you just mentioned, the reliability, everybody wants their lights on and off, and just to be able to make Ohio the place where things can be done. So we made it very clear that we're open for business. We lowered some of the personal property. We lowered them from 88% down to 7% from the standpoint of personal property tax on the appraised value. We've made it very clear that who's in generation business and who's in the transportation industry or with the wire transmission issue, and made it very clear so that we could get outside or people who aren't investing in Ohio to understand the value of coming here.
Yeah. You were talking about protecting farmland, not necessarily protecting it from urban sprawl, like if you're in central Ohio and the more the suburbs grow out into the farmland. But I've seen the signs on some of my back road drives back to Washington County of protect farmland from solar farms. I mean, that is an issue. And I know one was just approved, I think, by the Power Siting Board. But what's your overall message on that? I mean, I know Senate Bill 2 is kind of an all-of-the-above approach, and we've had former Senator Balderson, but Congressman Balderson on now, who is chair of one of the energy committees on Capitol Hill. And the Grid Power Act was kind of an all-above approach, but really capitalized on reliable baseload generation, which is natural gas.
So what I would like to say before I go on to the solar is that in Senate Bill 2, House Bill 15, we made it very clear there are no subsidies. We took away solar subsidies, we took away wind subsidy, we took away gas subsidy. We took everything away so it becomes a free market. Part of that issue is that it's no longer easy to recognize who does solar because some of these companies do everything. They'll have their hands in, or they'll have investments in all sorts of different types of energy because the technology is changing so quickly. So I think that was the part of the reason we had such good bipartisan support on that. As far as the local level with the solar and the wind is just again, outsiders coming in, maybe trying to manipulate local authority without people really understanding what's going on. And so then we did Senate Bill 52 about 5 years ago, which basically puts the focus back onto the county. So the county can either decide if they want the whole county open for wind and solar, or none of it, or specific areas of it.
Imagine that, back to local control. Here we are talking, because all politics, the old saying, all politics is local. But yeah, I mean, the people in that specific county need to really embrace what's going on, show up to your county commission meetings, show up to your school board meetings, and ask some pertinent questions. How is Senate Bill 147 that was signed into law that dealt with the landfill issue? And I mean, I know this was really a localized issue in your district. However, no state, especially the state of Ohio, wants to become a dumping ground for trash coming out of the East Coast.
Well, we've had a lot of fun with it because we're talking trash, that kind of thing. But the real issue is that the amount of out-of-state trash coming into Ohio, and it just happens to be in my district, but the rest of the state is open for this as well. But 98% of the trash coming in is from out of state. So it's a significant amount. We had 3 counties, and part of the legislation allowed a county to separate from a solid waste district. So they just filed their ask last week with the other 2 counties to separate. So we'll see how that goes. The locals are still concerned with trying to have oversight and trying to get a funding mechanism set up so we can understand what's happening with the trash, what's if it comes in pulverized, what's actually in there, what was ground up to be in there, and restraints for the future. Those will be there for a long, long time.
Yeah, and this definitely provided additional authority. Senate Bill 147, basically additional ability for the locals to have more of a say. Right. And also the landfill rates were important.
Well, I think I don't want to, there's actually a couple big pieces, and the one that I started the conversation with was about the solid waste districts. And 88 counties and 52 are single counties, so my district was handicapped by having 3, but I'd like to point out, so it doesn't all look so just about where I'm at, but Marion, Morrow, Knox County, and Delaware County are all in a solid waste district, and none of them have a landfill. But I had, one of those 4 counties asked to make a decision, and the other 3 wouldn't allow it. So it just seems to me makes sense. Again, local control, why can't we allow a county to make decisions in the best interests of their citizens? So that's what I think the biggest point of the whole issue was.
State Senator Bill Reineke, President Pro Tem, Republican from Tiffin, Ohio. Thanks for your time and perspective. A lot of insight today. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.